Inshallah, I won't take too much of your time. The subject of al-mirath or inheritance is a serious matter, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in that subject verses in the Quran in Surah An-Nisa, and there are hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, and it's in the subject of one's wealth. But one of the clear concepts of inheritance is that when a person dies, the wealth that he had in his life moves to go in the ownership of those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made very clear that they are the inheritors. So you don't own your money after you die, which is a very obvious thing, which is gives the benefit that we have been entrusted with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us to be tested to see how we are going to earn it and how we're going to spend it. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly stated to the believers, وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا جَعَلَكُمْ مُسْتَخْلَفِينَ فِيهِ. Spend from what He subhanahu wa ta'ala made you successors upon. That means this money came to you from something else or someone else from the previous generation. You've been entrusted with it. The reason I mention this is because sometimes people, they would, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, as there's a meaning of a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ like this, and with regards to the wasiyah especially, that they enter the hellfire because of the dhulm or the wrongdoing that they do in their wasiyah, in their will, with regards to matters of inheritance, especially in the West, when there is the responsibility of every person to have a will, otherwise his money can be lost or to given to those who have no rights to take his money. So it becomes mandatory for the person in many cases to have a will. And the will would include even some of the laws of inheritance, because it's not applied by default when a person dies. Someone had asked about the husband and wife, that he tried to make an agreement, which is a strange thing. Between them, they want to make an agreement that if he dies before her, she would not inherit from him anything. And if she dies before him, he would not inherit from her anything. And they would just give it to the kids or something like this. They think that this is a good thing or a bad thing, whatever there is. If something like that people did, right? That agreement, even if it's by an attorney and they signed it and everything, it might be executed because this is what they did legally. But in the deen of Islam, this agreement, لا اعتبار له. It does not exist. As if it does not exist. It's nothing. It's just basically nothing. That means if a person dies, inheritance is not an optional thing. This is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if someone dies, then the money is to distribute it according to the laws of inheritance. And once it's distributed and a person has this money or this portion of the money, he owns it, then he can do whatever he wants to do with his money. It's his money. So then he can give it to whoever he wants. But not before a person dies. And that's why in a situation like this, and if, say, the wife signed the paper and everything, religiously, say, for example, the husband dies, she can say, I want my inheritance. She's not cheating. She's not breaking a contract or not being trustworthy. No, this is the deen of Allah. Right? So she should not deceive, or they should not deceive themselves. But sometimes people do something without knowing the rulings of the deen of Allah, thinking that this is okay and it's their rights to undermine their own rights. No, this is not permissible because it does not exist whatsoever. It's nothing. So a person has to basically own it, and then he distributes it the way that he wants. And as we know that also that the wasiyah, nothing is to be written from one's wealth to be given to those who would inherit by the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The wasiyah, only as far as the word wasiyah is concerned, it refers to the money up to 1/3 that a person has to be given to whoever he wants. It's an opportunity for a person to do good deeds to those who would not inherit from him. But living in the West, again in America, in your wasiyah, right, you have two portions of it. One portion up to 1/3, and 1/3 is too much, as the Prophet ﷺ said. You can give it to whoever you want in a halal way, of course. And then the rest of it you should include in your wasiyah, whether let these people deal with it or you mention all the laws of inheritance, because nobody knows who's going to die before who. because it has to be distributed according to the laws of inheritance mentioned in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And since we know this, there's no excuse to undermine this or to let it be as if a person is living in a Muslim world. He doesn't have to care about it. No, he has to do something about it to save, to make sure that the laws of Allah are not undermined after he passes away. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us. And by the way, the question, the zakah needs to be paid if someone dies and people did not distribute certain amount of money, or they discovered money after 5 years. The money that passed all these years have zakah, but the zakat, there's details to it. Like from the moment that that person died, who have the right to this money? So they have the ownership immediately from the date that he died. So each person, now he takes his portion and he gives zakah on that portion of his money that he earned from the moment of the death of the deceased.